Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Basketball PH podcast. Enjoy the show.
Fantasy Basketball PH. Put your money where your mouth is. Ibang talakayan kaya tara halika. Fantasy Basketball PH. Fantasy Basketball PH. Ang numero unong basketball patasya ng Pinas. Fantasy Basketball PH. Dito mapag-uusapan mga ballers na ligas. Fantasy Basketball PH. Put your money where your mouth is. Iba't ibang talakayan kaya tara halika. Fantasy Basketball PH ang bida na ito'y magsisilbing daungan sa mga hilig na ang basketball ay mapag-usapan. Kasama si Papi Ray, madami kang matututunan gaya ng strategy, analysis sa kaganapan. Pag-uusapan ang DFS, roto head to head, buy low, sell high, add, draft and trade, magic puno at iba pang transaction sa laro. Lahat dito'y tatalakayin kayo, wag na lumayo. Bida dito yung mga player na magaling kumamada, mala Nicola Jokic at Victor Wembanyama. Yung mga hustle na player like Russell and Dillon at iba pa ay dito natin pwedeng makonsyon. Let's talk about NPBL, UAAP and PBA together with NCAA and NBA. At sa lahat ng mga nangungopya ka ng literal, sa aking mga content di rin kayo magtatagal.
Okay, welcome to the Fantasy Basketball PH podcast, your Filipino brand of fantasy basketball, ang numero uno fantasy basketball podcast ng Pinas. And before we jump into our special guest for today, let me just give a big shout out, of course, to the upcoming FBPH War Games, first in the industry. Hopefully, or I think that we are going to do a team inspired head-to-head. So it's gonna be in teams, not individually. We're used to working on our own, saving our best picks on our team. This time, it's gonna be fun and chaotic, I guess, because we have to work together in sequence when drafting. So more of this on a separate episode, but big shout out to our sponsor, Daily Fantasy, the #1 daily fantasy app in the Philippines. Of course, shout out to FBI, represented by Adam King. You also have representation from Yahoo Fantasy and Roto World, which is Dan Titus. Raphael Johnson for Roto World. NBA Fantasy Bible. We call him DMAC for Between Two Hoops. We also have Kayla Fonte for Last Word on Sport and Bitches Be Ballin'. We also have Scott Keller for Menace Padman with, I think he's with Will Slampier and Padcas Pierre. Shout out to those boys. And of course, our special guest for today is Matty G for Insight Sports, and lastly, Eric Zilber for Day-to-Day Fantasy. So shout out to those fantasy greats that's gonna be working together to maybe beat the Team Philippines representing Team World. And then of course, if you want to experience to leading your team to championship, and then if you want to test your wits in NBA, PBA, and other sports within the Philippines, just check out Daily Fantasy at www.playdailyfantasy.com. Okay, we are live, and I am here with one of the Team World's players. I know you've been seeing him and you've been watching a lot of Inside Sports episodes. Welcome to the show, Matty G.
I got to start out by saying, man, shout out to all our Filipinos brothers and sisters playing fantasy hoops and listening to the inside stuff. You get the data where everyone is around, and the Philippines, apart from Australia and New Zealand, is one of our top listener bases. So thank you to all of our friends over in the Philippines showing love to Insight. NBA, man, it's been awesome, and happy to be part of Team World for it as well.
Of course. And we are looking forward to it as well. But of course, since maybe some of us in the community doesn't know you yet, I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. Like, for example, how did you actually get your career started in fantasy basketball?
But man, just hoops, man. I've been playing basketball since I was a kid. I've loved it. My mum is in a wheelchair, so I've never known my mum to walk. My mum's been in a wheelchair since she was 13 years old. So the only sport my mum could play in a way was kind of basketball. So my mum would throw me a ball and I'd catch it, or she'd shoot it in a little mini hoop. And that's how I learned basketball. So I've just loved basketball my whole life. My dad He wasn't much of a sportsman. We'd throw a baseball around, even though I'm Australian, or we'd throw a cricket, we'd bowl, we'd toss a rugby ball. He wasn't much of a kicking kind of guy. So just kind of, but hoops was my thing. I'm 6'4", so I'm quite tall. And so it was just, like a thing that I did. And then I started playing, I play hoops a lot. I play 2K. I'm a mad 2K player. Like I just love my 2K. And I met these guys on playing 2K, like through lockdown, a guy from another state where I'm from. And he was talking and he invited me into my league. And then 4 years later, we're here and we're doing the Inside Podcast Network. We have guys who are NRL, AFL, NFL. We've got sports. We love sport. We love basketball. And now we're just really proud and happy to be able to bring our passion and our love of those things that we love to people who also love the same stuff, man. You're the same way. You love hoops, and that's what it's about.
For sure, for sure. And something that really caught my attention when I first saw your episode is the energy that you bring to the table.
Thank you.
Sometimes, we have Dan Bestfries and our good old friend, shout out to Josh Lloyd too, is actually our intro voice. So if he
Yeah.
has Bolton on his show, I have him on my
Yep.
show.
Yep.
But well, sometimes they get grumpy. But when you watch Matty G, you're
I'm
you're
never
laughing,
grumpy. I'm
right?
never grumpy. I'm never grumpy, man. I love doing this. Like this isn't my full-time thing. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I love learning, and I'm passionate about that. This is my thing aside. This is my thing to aside. This is my passion, my journey. I'm looking at the same data numbers. I do it to a much deeper level because I don't want the analysis that myself and Skitty's the same way. He doesn't want the analysis that he gives, and Mally and Matrix, the other guys in Inside NBA. We want to bring the best analysis possible. So we give this and we give it the energy and the love that it deserves because, man, we just effing love this stuff. You know what I mean? And we're passionate about it. And Josh is awesome, and Bezbris is awesome, and Titus and Kingy and these other guys that we get to work with are awesome. I got to guest on Josh's show this week, and it was we had a good time. We had laughs, and that's the spirit I think you've got to bring to all of these things. And like you, man, you're just good energy. Like you put this whole World Cup for us together, this Team World versus the Philippines. We got to knock your pants off. I mean, we're not. We're hoping to. It's tough, man. It's gonna be. It's a hell of a draft series, man. Like 1v1, Team World versus Team Philippines is gonna be crazy.
It's gonna get crazy. Guys who are watching, who's gonna watch, is gonna listen and actually listening and watching right now. I was actually kicked out from a GC that I created for Team World. That's how serious they are. So it's getting serious.
Yeah,
And
we had to boot you from a group chat because we were talking strategy. Because I'm like, he's like, what punts are we going? I'm like, don't. Poppy's in here. Roy's in the chat. What are you doing? Everyone, we're punting this. No, shut up. Roy's right here. Do you know? Roy is like that little he's like the Taylor Swift film clip for anti-hero. Like there's ghosts that live inside the room. Puppy's just standing there on a sheet waving. Like, no, I'm not here.
and then this one time I see Skinny actually doing a backdrop. Who just chatted, "Hey, let me do the
Yep.
last pick." I was like, "Gotcha."
Yep. It's like, what are we doing? No, what are we? No. And this is the thing. I'm telling my strategy straight out. I'm going best build to beat y'all. I don't even just want to beat the rest of the team, like my Team World people. I want to beat I want to beat everybody because that's what we try and do as fantasy managers. And I think that's our best advice is you can't be obsessed with beating. You can't be obsessed with beating the other 11 people or 13 people or 15 or 19 people in your league. You can't be obsessed with this theory of winning. What you have to be obsessed with is building the best quality version of the team that you want to build, whether it's punt points, whether it's punt blocks, whether it's punt like free throw percentage, whatever. You've got to be obsessed with building the best quality team to give yourself the best opportunity to win everything, no matter who the opponent is. And then that's kind of like the principle that I'm going for. And let's just see where it falls, man.
Yeah, I love that you raised that because you'll notice that I actually place a pot for the individual winner because I want that chaos. Like, what if
Chaos.
everybody's trying to synergize and then there's one team that's saying, "No, I'm not just gonna beat the other side. I'm gonna
Yep.
beat you all." So, I love that. I love that confidence and I love that fire.
And I love Kayla Fonte. She's an absolute queen. I love her. She's an amazing analyst and a good human being. And she's got the pick after me, and Kingy's got the pick before me. So I'm like I'm the sandwich meat, and I'm the hamburger. And they're the buns. And I'm like, I don't want to take her thing. I don't want her to take my thing. I don't want Kingy to take my thing. So maybe I'll be like, hey guys, I want this person. And maybe that's the only way you can really do it, because come the other end of the draft, the people who are away from you, between us, there's a person from the Philippines who could snipe us, and there's a person from the Philippines who could snipe us. So it's like there's still this room for error, and that's what a lot of fantasy is. Like it's our expectations and our projections. It's the crushing reality versus the hopes and dreams, and it's
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle is the truth in fantasy basketball.
And then I'm encouraging El Capitan Adam King to record
Yeah.
your draft, because we'll be recording a draft. And I was telling
Yeah.
the whole team Philippines that it's gonna be chaotic as a whole, and it's also
Yeah.
be chaotic within the team, because we are
Yeah.
gonna shout at each other saying, "Oh, why did you pick that?" Stuff like that. So it's gonna be
I
fun. It's gonna be
would.
fun.
And if you guys are streaming that live, maybe we put ours on delay for like 2 minutes. And if you could just send me that link so I could be paying attention to your live draft, that'd be I'm just gonna say that might be a really lovely thing for you to do. What is he? Who's in that queue? Just getting really close to the screen. Like, who is that in the queue? Is that Hartenstein or Harten? Josh Hart. I can't. Just looking at it really, really closely. It'll be fun.
You're gonna see us trying to trash talk you guys and end up trash talking each other, just because
Good.
it's gonna be
Good.
it's gonna be lit. Anyways, I don't want to take much of your time. So some points that I would like to ask is
Please,
I
ask
also
away.
asked King this 3 parts of the draft: the initial first couple of rounds, middle rounds, and then last couple of rounds. Give me names. Who do you have in mind? Like the ones that you
Shit.
like.
Just give me some. No, because this is my strategy. No, look, I actually just did a show. No, I'll tell you straight up, because I actually just did a show yesterday with Alex McLean from RotoWire, and we were just going about busts and like target people and bust people. And I think it's important to say that although no one can really like make you lose your draft, they can contribute. If you start to make that a pattern of drafting behavior, there's more negatives to be had if you overdraft based on rankings and ADPs instead of your gut and where your own projections are, or following the numbers. The ESPN is like Jalen Green is before like Jalen Suggs, and I would be drafting Jalen Suggs before I'd be drafting like Jalen Green. And but
Unless
Jalen
you're a
Green was really
Filipino.
good.
Unless you're a Filipino.
Unless you're a Filipino.
Jalen Green.
He is, and shout out. And I know how much. I think we were talking about this. I've refereed a Filipino league. One of my friends played in the Filipino NBA, like in the basketball. Antonio Reyes, an old head from the 90s, early 2000s. Antonio moved from Australia. I grew up playing hoops with him on the Gold Coast. Antonio Reyes moved over. I don't know if anyone knows him. He was only playing for a few years there in the Philippines. Man, he was my guy. Like, I used to hoop with him. He's still my mate now. So I go back a long way with Filipinos and basketball. Still play 2K. Shout out to my boy James. What's his online name? It's James 6. He's a Filipino brother over in Perth. Ray Lurking Fox on PSN. Man, he's down in Victoria. So I've still got mad love for my Filipino brothers and sisters. But I think it's like when it comes to these things, like, you're trying to look at these names and like, you got to take that off. I think that's part of the bias. Like, you have this, like, I'm not going to go and draft Josh Giddey at 70 because he's Australian. I want good things for Ben Simmons, not because he's Australian, but I think it's been pretty shit for owners to go through the battles of the last 4 years, and for him personally to play no more than amount of games because of injury and mental health issues. Names at the top of the board that I really like. I like Kyrie. I like Kyrie Irving a lot. He's up there on my board. I'll bring up my slides in the background, actually, from what I'll literally walk you. I'll literally give you what I put on the show yesterday. I will go into my show notes from yesterday.
There you go.
And give I'll go into a couple of my things and give you these. But people still, you got to go listen to the podcast though. You still got to go hit that podcast up. Go and listen, because there's over like 30 names that we chatted. But here we go. My ones at the top that I put in for my targets. I had Kyrie Irving. I think Jalen Johnson now has come back a little bit. He was in the early 30s and he's come back into the 40s. Now, I'm not saying you should grab him at 40, but I think it's a good shout to be able to get him there. Whereas I think when he was going down in drafts around 32 before Jalen Williams, we don't do that. I also like, look, I do like Paul George early. I know that was one of the targets from Reclean. I'm kind of vibing Darius Garland a little bit in the middle-ish rounds. I'm not saying to overdraft him up in the from 40 onwards. But around the 50 mark, if he's there, I'm buying him a drink at the bar and being like, hey, Darius, do you want to join the team? Because I think that's really good value around that part of the draft for me. Other guys around the middle of the draft, I think it gets chaotic, man. To be honest, Roy, I think it gets really interesting around that middle market. There's guys who I'm interested in, like DeMar DeRozan. Look, Zach LaVine starts to slip to value at a certain point around that middle. I think Brandon Miller from the Charlotte Hornets showed out in preseason, but I still think he has a long way to go. But I can see him being overdrafted. I can see him maybe becoming the second Hornets option. Over Miles Bridges, but I think we have to just see a little bit more playmaking and development from him first, because it took him, look, he was progressive last year, but I think with a healthy LaMelo Ball, love that. And I do love LaMelo early too. I think in the second round, LaMelo looked really good. Thank goodness he's decided to wear ankle braces. That's great for everybody. Like that's the thing. But after, man, late, I just think there is so much value late in draft. I mentioned Jalen Suggs already. Keontae George, I love him in Utah. I think he's good. Man, I even like Jordan Poole in the 90s. And I had this on Josh's thing. I think we've been too hard on Jordan Poole. Like we were so aggressive in our opinions sometimes to like, oh, I hate him. He's shit. Oh man, he burned me last year. Okay, yes, he did. But you also chose to go that path. If you were drafting him last year at 40, if you were drafting him at 50, that was your fault. You listened to the hype instead of playing it conservatively and seeing what was going with the team that had just bought in Tyus Jones when his preferred job as point guard. You did that to yourself. Jordan Poole didn't do that, and he was upset about it. He was so unhappy last year. But anyway, from 90s down, and I do think at the end of draft, there's guys like Al Horford in there who are like just insane value around the hundreds with KP being out. I just think there's a lot of guys late that you can pick up, but you really need to start choosing fit. Like even Klay Thompson's in the like 110s, I think is serviceable at that point in time. And I just think we got to play it. I don't think I have any favorites there. I'm really all about a best on board drafting situation around then.
Yeah, for sure. And then I love that you mentioned a couple of names, like for example, Jalen Johnson. One of the reason that he's really sliding in actual drafts because there's gonna be an early big man with blocks run, and he's gonna fall. And that's usually that's the reason. And we love that because we're getting value. Because
well, this is
people
where
are-
I don't like. This is where I don't like Chet, and this is where I don't like Ant Edwards. And it's not because I don't like them. I love these two guys. Like I preach from the rafters about how fun these guys are. Like if you're drafting an all fun team, dude, I'd take these guys in my first round. I love them. But I saw Chet Holmgren in a mock draft. Check out the episode I did. You can hear my reaction. Ant Edwards and Chet Holmgren. What was it? It was in my Shea video that I just put up like a couple of days ago. I was picking from 4 and I'm just like talking around my picks and where I might go with my strategy. And all of a sudden I was like, holy jingies. Like Ant Edwards and Chet Holmgren both went off in the first round, man. I'm like, no, let's not do that. Like we can really love the potential of Ant Edwards. We can think he is like Minnesota's son with Cat being gone, but let's not put him there. And Chet, he's not first round. He was 20th last year. We bring a center in who can eat some of his minutes. We bring in Caruso, who's an amazing perimeter defender, and we expect him to take a leap into the first round. Nah, man, we got to be conservative with that a little bit and just temper our expectations. I love him, but I'm not putting him in the first round.
Yeah, well, people love shiny things, and those
Love
couple
shiny
of
things.
those
Love
couple of
shiny
players
things.
are too shiny and then tempting for them. But there's another multiverse that I'll probably do the same as
Yeah.
long as I have a purpose or I have a strategy. Then
Okay.
that's gonna be fine. And that's gonna be interesting and fun for who's ever gonna do that. Thank you for sharing those. So whoever's gonna watch this, at least we get to know Matty G not only with the history of his, but also the couple of players that he likes in this season's draft. Last couple of message from you. Thoughts about war games and message to
Oh.
the Philippine community and also to Team PH.
I want to call it love games just because I've got nothing but love for fantasy basketball. Nothing, but no, man, I love my leagues and I love the thing and the people that I play with. So I don't know everyone in the Filipino community yet. So I'm really looking forward to that. I love passionate people, passionate players and GMs. And I know that that's what we're going to get. And I know we've got a passionate competition and we've got some really crafty people in here from Team World. We've got as you said earlier in the pod, we've got a who's who of people in here who are really who love fantasy. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just telling Team Philippines to bring it because we're bringing it, because that's what fantasy is, man. And I've got nothing but mad respect. It's not like we want to like hurt anybody's feelings here. We just want to have some good fun in the name of charity and love and passion at the game together and share that. But man, it's on. Like 100%, man, bring it, because we're going to do it, because no one wants to, no manager steps into a draft lobby being like, you know what? Shit, man, I really want to lose this draft. You know what? I'm just going to take people really high today. I'm just going to have all upside team and start drafting Jalen Green in the 4th round. And I'm not going to do that. But I'm just saying, my only thing for Team Philippines is bring it. We're going to do the same thing, and it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And man, I can't wait. It's exciting.
There you go. There you go. So I'm pretty sure the whole fantasy community will embrace you, the Inside Fantasy Sports, as well as the Team PH. Hopefully, get ignited by your message, and then
oh man, they're gonna bring it. You don't want to lose, Poppy. Tell me, you want to? We've drafted together. You son of, you man. I know what you've been doing in drafts, man. I've seen you taking my guys, Poppy. I see you. I know you're going to be doing the damn same thing, and I'm going to be doing the same thing back to you, my brother. I promise you. And that's exactly what this is, because as frustrating as it is, that makes it fun and engaging, man. So it's going to be awesome.
There you go. There you go. And by the way, before we end the show, thank you so much, Matty G, for jumping in. I really appreciate you making time, and also this won't be the last, so you'll definitely see
Oh, I'll be
more
back.
of Matty in the show. Before I end this episode, I had a fun idea earlier. I was looking at several posts, like I see D-Max posts and a couple of fantasy sites, as well as fantasy personality and X earlier, and I was kind of like making fun of them. Like you had a sleeper list or breakout
Yep.
list, and you didn't have Ben Simmons, because I was really
No.
teasing. I was teasing
Yeah.
DMAC, and I was telling them,
Yeah.
"Oh, let me create a list of sleepers out of
Yep.
all of your sleeper list that isn't
Mm-hmm.
in your list."
Yep.
And I'd probably end
I
up
don't.
with trash, but I don't know.
Sleeper list. I actually, you know what? That's funny you do that. I've got a pod coming out with that. Like I'm calling it deep cut, guys. I do not think Ben Simmons is a sleeper, because I think the attention that he warrants. See, part of my sleepers thing is like, who are these guys that fly under the radar? There are so many workout videos and so many narratives over Ben Simmons that he kind of exists in the ether. For me, a true sleeper is a name that you might hear occasionally, but you're unsure of, like a Cam Johnson. I spoke about this with Reclean. I think Cam Johnson's ADP at 127 right now on Yahoo I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard his name mentioned, but people are really high on Noah Clowney. Like they really want some Noah Clowney love. Noah Clowney is not so much of a sleeper, because we're woke to the idea of Noah Clowney. Trace Jackson Davis still isn't getting a lot of love, and his average ADP as well is around the 127s on Yahoo. So he's around this bracket of the 120 after guys. He did really well the other day in the Warriors preseason game. He started over Looney. Now, whether Kerr sticks with that or not, yeah, love it. Bub Carrington, we call it DMAC. You mentioned him. We have a hashtag Chub for Bub, is our thing. I love Bub Carrington, and Brogdon's injury only means good things for him. Guys like Homie Jaquez Jr. and Jovic in deep leagues, because they're going to have a role to shine. Kel'el Ware, I want to see some minutes from him in the preseason and see what he can do. So those Miami Heat other guys, man, Lonzo Ball is not a sleeper, because we know how good Lonzo can be, but we're not going to pin it on his health, because we've seen him be a top 50, top 60 player. Guys like Al Horford, I think he'll drop down into like the 130s. I have a much higher stock in him, because he kind of goes forgotten about. And Rob Dillingham, like guys like that. KCP, we forget how good he can be. He's around the 140s in drafts. So these are guys who we forget the names of, because we sleep on their ability and we forget them quite easily. And like you said, the shiny new toys, Papi. You know what I'm talking about. The shiny new toys. We call points, guys. I call them the sexy girl in the red dress at the bar. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
out of all of, like you see this, and a guy goes for 40 points for 2 games in a row, and all of a sudden you want to trade for him, because you're like, oh, look at the attention. They want that's the attention it gets, but it doesn't mean it's good for you long term. You might not marry that red dress girl. You might be really attracted to it for a very, very short time. What you want is something beautiful and sustainable, and something that can help your fantasy team grow, not the shiny new toy all the time. They're fun, but they're not sustainable. And very rarely do any players of any caliber or quality keep up that high level of performance that we get addicted to. But they can score me 40 every night. No, they can't. No one scores 40 every night in the NBA.
And of course, there's always going to be an implication of really reaching for those
Yep,
shiny toys, because it's going to make other teams, especially if you're drafting with good teams beside you, they're going to go
yep.
shopping because you're
Oh,
reaching a lot of
100%.
people.
You
So
just leaving value on the table, man. You leaving value. Like that's why Jalen Williams for me was really I was liking Jalen Williams a lot more. I love J Dub. And this is the thing about the conversation earlier. Jalen Johnson was being overdrafted. He was being drafted in a majority of cases before Jalen Williams. And now they're kind of like finding parallels
yeah,
in Yahoo. They're about the same. But for me, I'm still taking Jalen Williams before Jalen Johnson. But if Jalen Johnson slips into the 40s, because I'm like, yeah, maybe his efficiency goes down, maybe his health is a bit of a question mark from last year. I'm like, sure, I like that. I'll take it. It's a tasty pick up there, but I'm not doing it at 32.
for sure, for sure. And this is going to be interesting because, with all of this, these are amazing takes. These are amazing lists coming from people who really invested time
Yeah,
to research for it, like you. But when you're actually in drafts, totally different. You know,
totally
you're
different.
on your own. You're on your own. There's a lot of recency bias. There's a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
any thoughts that any takes that you've recently heard or read could be just on
Yep.
top of your head, and then you're put into a situation wherein you got 30 seconds to 45 seconds to 1 minute on the clock. Who's gonna choose? So it's really
I'm
important to really follow guys like Matty G and the Inside Fantasy Sports because it's more of like really comparing different perspective and then
yep.
find which parts really resonates to you, validate them on your own, and be your own analyst.
And my last piece of advice, Papi Roy, would be this. I think there's in like the away from basketball, in we have to think about basketball as not our number one thing. We got to think about how we work as people is the number one thing. So as an analyst, I put on my person hat first, and then I view everything in the basketball and analytics from that. There's a thing in neuroscience and stuff called like confirmation bias
Yeah.
and anchoring bias. And we do this without knowing it because it's what we do, but we do it in fantasy. But I'm kind of aware of it. And confirmation bias is that the first thing that you see, if you say that I think that if you believe, oh man, I really love Jalen Johnson this year, again, using him, I really love him this year. I really do think he's going to be the Hawks because you saw him last year. The anchoring thought was he was really good last year. I love what he can do. I think he can even be better, and he can be better. But the confirmation bias is that you now think that you have this opinion that he can be better. And the first thing that you hear is a hot take that Jalen Johnson in a press conference interview is going to be the second option on the Atlanta Hawks. He's been putting in work that no one's been speaking about with Trae Young. Man, they look engaged. They look ready. And then he goes out on a box score, and in the first 12 minutes where they don't play a Kongwu, they don't have proper rotations, Bogdan Bogdanovic ain't playing. He goes out there in the first quarter, puts up 13 points, 2 threes, puts his nuts in someone's face like he did to Austin Reeves last year on a massive dunk, gets himself 6 rebounds, a couple of assists, and he's got a full stat line, and that's your confirmation bias straight away. You're like, that's what he's going to be this season. And so you then take him in that 30s. Whereas you got to be looking at the other factors. It's preseason. There was other factors involved. The minutes were different. He didn't get injured. Players weren't playing. It was against the Washington Wizards. And, but you hold to that. So let's just not do that in fantasy. And as you said, we won't overdraft and we'll do the right thing and we'll get the best quality team to hopefully win our championships.
There you go. There you go. Golden Nuggets coming from Matty G. Again,
Thank you,
thank you
man.
so much, Matty, for coming into the show. Guys, everyone, give some follows to Matty G. Anything you want to promote, Matty G,
No,
before we
man.
end?
Man, just love everything. You can follow us at X at Inside FS. I am at NBAG Wiz. You can get all Inside stuff on our YouTube channel across all audio. Just go Inside NBA wherever you get your audio from and check it out. And we'll be bringing you updates, and especially about the World Cup over the way as well. Skitty's in that with us. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun.
There you go. Okay, again, this has been your NBA Fantasy Papi in the house. Another episode done. Thank you so much, Matty G. Bye, everyone.
Bye. All.